morning, day 2. It's odd to me how different I can feel day to day. Yesterday, I popped out of bed super awake at like 4 or 5 a.m. And today, not so much. But I went to the gym yesterday. I did a really intense workout and I kind of feel like, there you go, building a lot of muscle mass. Like I can feel it. I think it's making my body work harder. So I need more sleep to compensate. And I definitely think this is going to be part of the happy, impassioned, wholehearted way, or whatever I want to call it. Living happy, getting happy, prioritizing happy is going to include understanding my body isn't going to feel the same every day and not requiring the same of me every day. I think that's part of it. But I still want to do... I still want consistent patterns in my living. I think those are good for becoming happier. So I had my happy coffee, having my happy coffee. I had my happy walk with my doggy already. I did that first, actually, before the coffee. I feel like that kind of lets me wake up in the fresh air. It was breezy. I want to go before it's too hot. And sometimes if I'm pumped up on coffee, I think there's an openness that comes with still being a little asleep and a little tired sometimes. And I don't want to rely on that. I listened to The Power of Awareness by Neville Goddard on my walk. It's a short audiobook. I think it's about 2 hours to be read to me. But it is so powerful. And it's touching on, it's crazy because it's from, I don't know, like the 30s or 40s. It's a while ago. And it's basically talking about the law of attraction. And the law of attraction is something that's thrown out a bit. It's usually coming from like Esther Hicks sort of idea. Some people will have heard of The Secret. The Secret actually is based on Abraham and Esther and Jerry Hicks, but they took all of that out of the movies and books. They took the source of it out, and they took a lot of the actual secret out of it, which is strange, and something that when it comes to sort of this idea seems to happen a lot. So if you find, even Jerry Hicks has talked about, he had this book when he was younger he got his hands on, like Think and Grow Rich, and it really worked well for him, and he couldn't figure out why it didn't work well for everyone. And he found an original manuscript of it and discovered that a lot of the actual points that were the secret had been taken out. And I don't know why that is. I'm not going to get into a conspiracy thing about it, but a huge piece of this is getting happy. It sounds odd. And so Neville Goddard is really, he's talking about, he doesn't call it the law of attraction, he calls it the law of assumption. And rather than relating it to the law of gravity, he relates it to the law of magnetism. But it's the idea that, and it's his actually is a very Christian take, which is interesting. I think Christians can kind of feel weird and woo-woo about this stuff, but his is actually using the Bible to completely explain sort of where his idea of this law comes from, that the Christ is your imagination. And when we say we're created in the image of God, it's really your imagination, and you're able to create or generate the life you want from your imagination and your beingness. But that we're designing the world and our experience by assumptions, that we're living in a world of imagination. And the Abraham thought process would say we're living in a world of vibration. So we do know everything's vibration. We know there's light vibration and sound vibrations everywhere, molecules. Like we're swimming in a soup that isn't just space around. And we know enough from physics to know, like, I'm not solid. I just appear solid, and it's moving so fast that, I feel solid. So, and that our senses, like our eyes, our ears, our skin, our taste, are interpreting vibration, and that's what creates our experience. From a scientific perspective, I really get that, because we know we're vibration, and that makes sense to me why when we interpret things, they're not as solid and as much of a given as we think they are, because we have interpreters that are interpreting what's around us. Neville's way of explaining it would be you're living in a world of imagination. Basically, there's a lot of possibility, and based on our assumptions, it's directing what you are seeing, feeling, hearing, and experiencing, which is really the same idea. We know that our brain and our eyes and all that stuff are filtering a lot of data. We haven't seemed to take that to the point where we're thinking about what's filtering the data and that we have control over what's filtering, what the data is filtering. We do know enough to know, I mean, when we wake up on the wrong side of the bed, that we're going to have a bad day usually all day long, and we'll be like, it's just one of those days. So when it comes to the negative attraction point, like if we're feeling down or irritable, ladies, if you're feeling hormonal, we know that it's going to be a harder day. I never connected that though to my mood and that I'm literally attracting sort of these more difficult experiences, and because of how I'm feeling. So we tend to have more momentum around the negative than the positive in our culture right now, because I think a lot of us are living more on the negative side. So I'll pull up my emotional guidance scale again. A lot of us are living down here. Depression, grief, fear is really big right now. Insecurity, guilt, unworthiness. We've got a lot of that going on. And so we can only attract in that area. And of course, we think it's truth because it's what we see and experience. But the idea here is it's not truth, it's what we're attracting. And if we can get out of being down here and get up here and realize that the good things are just as much truth as the bad things, we're just more used to believing and accepting bad things because it's kind of proven itself to us because we're constantly attracting it. And that's the thing about the law of attraction, right? If it's constantly happening to you, you think it's truth because it's constantly happening to you. And you have to do something different to start attracting something different. And I've done that in different areas of my life. My big goal right now is a different kind of feeling vocation. So job-wise, I'm blessed to take a pause and be able to really get my energy right first. I really believe that it's all about being happy. And I think there's certain things that help us be happy. So I did my meditation this morning. I just did it quietly. I did 20 minutes. I didn't do a guided one today. I'm going to share a little bit of a reading with you. This is between Wayne Dyer and Esther Hicks. They have a conversation, which actually has turned out to be a great book. I had heard it audibly before, but reading it actually is really impactful. And I'm just going to jump right into something here that Abraham is saying. Everyone would feel better if they would just think thoughts that feel better. And I always thought thoughts were happening to me. I didn't know that I was choosing thoughts. And so it's an interesting process to shift to being like, wow, I'm really choosing my thoughts, and I need to choose thoughts that make me feel good. I thought I kind of had to think the thoughts that I was thinking because they were something I was supposed to think about because they were there. And so I had a lot of fear-based thoughts and a lot of negative thoughts. And it's an interesting practice to begin to go, okay, I need to stop thoughts that don't make me feel good. Even if I think worry is going to, a lot of times I think worry gets us somewhere, like it's a way to manage fear. Now worry is way higher on the emotional scale than fear. So it's normal for worry or blame, you can also see blame up there, to feel better than fear or guilt. So if we're feeling guilty, we'd rather blame someone because it feels better on the emotional scale. And if we're scared of something, we'd rather worry about it because it feels better. But it doesn't get us anywhere other than attracting more things that make us feel worried. Everyone would feel better if they would just think thoughts that feel better. But it is, as Esther said to us often in the beginning, but Abraham, it's true, this unwanted thing actually did happen. Therefore, shouldn't I think about it? And we explained to her that there are many things that are true that feel good when you focus upon them. And there are many things that are true that feel horrible when you focus upon them. We would be selective about what we focus upon, because when you focus upon the things that feel horrible, you're out there on the raw and ragged edge, seemingly without your source. Of course, you're never really without your source, because source never stops perceiving life through you. But sometimes you hold a vibrational frequency that causes you to be resistant to the vibration of source. So it feels like you're pinched off. And then you miss so many realizations, and there's so much you do not recognize. And then Wayne Dyer asks, can't someone who's living closer to source energy have an impact in a family or community? And Abraham responds, yes, certainly. So he asks, isn't that what Abraham is doing? Certainly, Abraham answers. But people have to be ready. They have to be in the vibrational vicinity. You cannot set your radio dial on 98 and hear what's being broadcast on 101. The frequencies have to match up. Too often, people beat up on themselves when things aren't going well. They become self-derogatory. And we want them to understand there's always a vibrational choice that they do have some control over if they will try a little bit. That's why we are so emphatic about your early morning thoughts. Find some general thoughts that feel good and try to stay there until some of momentum gets going. And then notice how this day is different because you did that. And after 30 days of doing that, you'll know what we're talking about. I guess we'll see in 30 days if I know what they're talking about. I mean, I've been reading this stuff for a while, but I haven't dedicated, like, I'm doing this, right? So I'm doing my meditation, I'm doing my reading. And I also have this book that's like a flip 365-day flip book by Abraham I'm going to share. And it says the value of ego. So if you've dipped your toe into any like Course in Miracles work or any psychological work, there's always stuff about the ego and the ego sort of being made to be sort of a bad thing, that it's sort of, certainly in the Course in Miracles, it's basically like your physical being, and it can distract you from your spiritual being essentially, or sort of, I don't know, become an identity of its own. And in the Abraham thought process is similar to any other spiritual process. You have your physical being and your spiritual being. And the Course in Miracles has that too, your physical being and your spiritual being. The Course in Miracles sort of has a darker turn on it. I like Abraham's because it's very simple, and it's very much like your spiritual being is using your physical being to grow and expand. And so your physical being is a huge part of this relationship. But when the physical being gets a little too, when you think it's all there is, then you're not going to enjoy life as much, because you're sort of pinching off your connection to what they call source, which is really your inner being, which other people might call the Holy Spirit or God. Anyway, it speaks into it a little bit here. I'll let them speak about it. So this one's called The Value of Ego, and there's two quotes. The first one says, your ego is this physical conscious perspective. It is the part of you that allows you to add definition to your broader perspective. In other words, if you did not have this perspective, this ability to see and perceive, this ego, then you would not be as beneficial to the broader scheme of things. So, in other words, because you're here and experiencing life, you're beneficial to all of non-physical, all of the spiritual. Whether you are aware or not is really irrelevant, but if you want to really enjoy life, you want to be aware of it. The next quote is, your sixth sense is your inner being who has a full view of all that you are living. So, all that you've ever lived and all that is in your future. So that'd be the part of you that's still spiritual. And in the Course in Miracles would be your Holy Spirit. Your sixth sense is your inner being with broader perspective of that which you are. Your sixth sense is your broad perspective. You can call it God perspective. You can call it inner being. You can call it soul. You can call it a spiritual guide. You have all kinds of names. You could call it your angels. You can call it the Holy Spirit. You can call it whatever you want to call it. It is the non-physical part of you that has very keen awareness of that which you are. Your sixth sense is your feeling barometer that lets you know the distance between what you want and what you are currently vibrating, your gut feeling. And what I love about all of this work is it's all connected in the end, and it all makes sense when you start to piece it all together. And that's why I like to study a lot of different things. But I do definitely now lean towards things that are positive, things that are full of hope. And so before I finish the video for today, where am I at? So I throw the card, right? That's the whole point of this. Where am I at? I woke up, I'd say around contentedness, boredom, which is the tipping point when I was on my walk. I feel like, okay. And then on my walk, I was able to get to like hopefulness, optimism. I'm pretty tired still. So if I check in for a second of where I'm at, I'm still teetering on contentment and boredom, I'd say. I'm not feeling pessimistic. But that's really where I'm at. I'm sort of right at the tipping point. So at least I'm not below that. That's great. Maybe after more coffee, I'll feel better.